It is now 4:20 a.m. Blaze it. Hey comrades, and welcome back to The Book Bugs. Today, tomorrow, technically, because it is 11 o'clock at night, I'm going to be undertaking the massive, the very exciting, the very popular 24-hour reading challenge that has taken BookTube by storm. I've been seeing it all over like my YouTube page, and then Gabby was gonna do it, and then Gabby was like, just kidding, I can't do it. And I was like, well, that sounds fun and interesting, and I have so many books and I have a free day and I'll do it. And I'm very excited and very much looking forward to it. For those of you who don't know, the 24-hour reading challenge is, well, exactly what it sounds like. I read as many books as possible in 24 hours. Now, there are a number of booktubers who have split this up into two parts, like two 12-hour sections. However, I think I can do the full 24-hour thing, or at least I'm hoping I can. There's a small chance that I'm not going to be able to do it, but you never know until you try. I mean, here's the thing. I've spent an entire day reading before, okay? Those days are some of my favorite days. I read absolute garbage. I drink tea. It's a lot of fun, okay? But I've never spent a whole 24 hours doing it, and I've never, timed myself and said, you can't do anything but this. Now, what I'm interested to see is, can I do a full 24 hours reading, without doing anything else? Will my ADHD allow me to do that? And will I find it enjoyable? I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I have so many books sitting on my shelves, sitting in my Kindle library, my Nook library, whatever library, that I've been dying to read, and I just haven't put aside the time to read. So I've selected a pile of books from my shelves. I pulled them tonight based upon what I think I'm going to want to read, like what sounds good to me now, because I'm very much an in-the-moment reader. Grace, Grace. She can plan out ahead of time what books she's going to read for the next month. And I'm like, excuse me, you don't just go by your gut, whatever you're feeling? How do you do that? She's got willpower, I guess, and I just don't. Anyways, so I've pulled out piles of books. And I'm also going to go through my Kindle library and my Apple library and my Nook library on my iPad and select a bunch of books on there as well that I own already, so that I have a selection, a cut down selection to choose from for these next 24 hours. Now, I have a variety of different genres on here depending upon what I'm in the mood for. Some are going to be heavier, some are going to be lighter. I'm definitely going to pull out a few historical romances as palate cleansers, because they're quick, they're easy, I can get through them in 2 to 3 hours. I've read 4 or 5 of them in one day before, just because I'm able to go straight through them. So I figured they'd be good palate cleansers between anything that's really heavy or a lot, or that's leaving me thinking, that I can just clear my mind. All these books are going to be new to me, books I've never read before. I am someone who likes to reread books a lot, but I figured that wouldn't be in the true spirit of this challenge, since books you've read before, at least for me, I can get through a lot quicker than the first time that I read them. So yes, I'm going to be doing the full 24 hours all in one go. My current plan is to go from 2 a.m. to 2 a.m. If you're wondering why I picked 2 a.m. to 2 a.m., I have class on Tuesday. Now, I'm going to be doing this 24-hour reading challenge on a Monday. Now, my class is an afternoon class, and so what I'm thinking is, after I finish at 2 a.m., technically Tuesday morning, I'll be able to go to sleep, wake up at 11, throw on clothes, and rush to class, and, probably be fine, because I'll have gotten 8 or 9 hours of sleep. We'll see how I am. I'm probably going to be sleep deprived. It's fine. Probably. It's fine. What that does mean is that I'm not going to film a conclusion or an outro or going over all the things that I read until later that day after I've gone to sleep. I get wild when I'm tired. This is really gonna be a situation that's interesting. I don't know what I'm thinking. So I think that's everything I need to talk to you guys about before I get started. So I will see you all at 2 a.m. Okay, so first update. I have been reading The Color of Magic by Terry Pratchett, which is the first book in the Discworld series, which I thought I would like. But it's around 3 a.m. now, so I've been reading this for about an hour. I'm on page 85 of 275, which is roughly 30% of the way through the book, and I hate it. I hate it. I am so incredibly bored and having to work to focus my attention, and maybe it's that it's too early for this, right? Maybe my brain just isn't up for it, but I feel like nothing's happened. I feel like there's no inciting incident. I don't know what the rest of the story is going to be about. So it's not enough to hold my attention right now. So I can't. So I'm going to move on to another book. So for now, I'm DNFing that book. I'm going to start A Dance of Silver and Shadow by Melanie Saligay. You would have seen this in my memorial haul with Grace and Gabby. That video's up now. I have been wanting to read this for a long time, and it's a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses. So I'm gonna start this. It's 3 a.m. Let's get started. It is now 4:18 a.m. I am getting tired, which is very fun considering I'm in the first 3 hours of this challenge. I feel like the coffee didn't do anything for me at all, so that's great. But good news, I'm enjoying my second book way more than the first one. I'm on page 184 at this point. I'm over halfway through the book because I think this is roughly 300 pages. So I'm like just over halfway. Very good so far. Very much enjoying it. Very different than some of the other retellings I've read. And they've taken a lot more creative liberties, but I love it. I'm really, really digging it and really vibing with it. My cat's going nuts, needing my attention because, of course she does. She's tired too. She's mad at me for the lights being on. This is going on too long. I will update you probably when I finish the book, at whatever time that'll be. All right, it is now 5:25, and I've just finished A Dance of Silver and Shadow. I really liked it. Very cute, very fairy tale, very retelling. It's been 3.5 hours and I'm tired. I'm also getting hungry, which means I guess I'm gonna eat some breakfast. I need something different than this one because I'm worried that all the books are gonna start to blend the same. I'm worried that all the books are gonna blend together in my head and become the same, and that's not what I want. I want to be able to like remember differences so I can actually talk about them at the end. I do have a murder mystery I can do. I'm gonna check what ebooks I have, but for right now, let's say I'm gonna read this one next. A Most Agreeable Murder by Julia Seals. And while I'm picking my ebook, I'm going to make myself breakfast because that coffee's eating away at my stomach lining. It's fine. It's okay, I can do this. I'm still enjoying reading, BT dubs. 3 hours in, still enjoying reading. It is now 5:50 a.m. I have made myself breakfast, refilled my water, and reviewed my ebook choices, and I've decided, indeed, that A Most Agreeable Murder by Julia Seals is the correct choice for my next read. It's been likened to a cross between Agatha Christie and Jane Austen, so I'm very, very excited. Sounds like it's right up my alley. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Hey guys, so as perhaps you can tell from the fact that I'm laying down in bed, I'm having to suspend my 24-hour reading challenge. I guess I've never mentioned this in my videos before, but I'm someone who's prone to migraines, and I should have realized that being exhausted and staying up and straining my eyes would promote migraines, and it's about 8 a.m. I was reading for a while and my headache kept growing worse and worse. And I got about 100 pages into A Most Agreeable Murder and I'm just not doing well. So I guess I'll be pausing this indefinitely. And what I'm probably going to wind up doing is talking about retellings a bit later once I feel better. This was fun. It was interesting, I guess. And maybe one day when my sleep schedule was a little less bad, I can try and do this over again in a more conscientious way that actually focuses on what I need and what my health needs out of my sleeping habits and reading habits. And point is, I have to suspend this, and that's really it. I guess I'll see y'all later so I can talk about things. Bye.
So as you just saw, I had originally planned on doing a I read for 24 hours book challenge, and I was really excited about it. Like you saw, I woke up at 2 a.m. I had a plan to do it for 24 hours, and then disaster struck. I suffer from chronic migraines, which means that a lot of times things in my life go a little bit awry and things sometimes don't go as planned, and I kind of just have to roll with that. If any of you out there are also suffering from chronic pain conditions or really just any chronic condition like this that has flare ups, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, what I decided to do instead for this week is talk about the category, the subgenre of the one book I did get to finish, which was A Dance of Silver and Shadow by Melanie Sellier. Now, that was a fairy tale retelling. It was a clean romance YA fantasy. Now, fairy tale retellings is a subgenre that I personally absolutely adore. I have read more fairy tale retellings than I care to count. So what I thought I'd do today is show off and recommend my favorites of the bunch. Now, these are not the only ones that I've read, and there are so many more out there, some of which are insanely popular that I'll mention, and I actually have some fairy tale retellings that are sitting on my shelf because I've been wanting to read them and waiting to read them, and I just haven't found the time because when I read one, I want to be able to sit down and really get into it. So, without further ado, let's get into this. So the first fairy tale retelling I want to talk about is The Goose Girl by Shannon Hale. This is a book that was published, I think, in the 2010s, so it's a lot older, and it's actually part of a series called The Books of Bayern. It is a retelling of The Goose Girl, which is maybe not one that you're familiar with. I wouldn't say that it's a popular fairy tale. It never got a Disney remake, but it's a really good book. It's one that I read in childhood and I've read many, many times since. It's a favorite of mine. It's a comfort read, and if you do enjoy fairy tale retellings, I'd recommend you give it a try. Now, it is a middle grade fairy tale retelling, which might not be to all of your tastes. I completely understand some people don't like reading middle grade once you get out of that age range. But I personally think that middle grade also has some really great literature. So if you're willing and you like fairy tale retellings, I'd strongly recommend that you give it a chance. Okay, next is an author that I think a lot of you are familiar with. She created the selection, and that is The Siren by Kiera Cass. Now, this isn't a one-to-one retelling. I personally think of it as a Little Mermaid retelling. However, it's definitely more retelling than it is similar to the fairy tale, if you understand what I mean. I personally really liked The Siren. I thought it was very unique and very individual and definitely not like anything that I had read before. And if you don't like Kiera Cass because you didn't like the selection, I'd still recommend that you give The Siren a try. It's a very different style of writing and it has a lot of different elements than what the selection was. So if you read the synopsis and you find it interesting, just give it a try. I really enjoyed it and I think you will too. Now, for a runner-up, I actually have another Little Mermaid retelling sitting on my shelf, and that's To Kill a Kingdom. To Kill a Kingdom was a book that's definitely was published more recently, and I know that it got a lot of popularity, so you may have heard of it before. I haven't read it, but I'm really looking forward to it, and I didn't want to leave it out of this video just because it is a fairy tale retelling that I've heard nothing but good things about, and I thought you might like to hear about it. So if you like Little Mermaid retellings, I'd recommend you check it out. I've never been a huge fan of Little Mermaid retellings. I think because I was never a fan of the Little Mermaid movie. Please don't come for me. I really liked the recent live action adaptation though, so maybe I'll start reading more Little Mermaid retellings. If you have favorite Little Mermaid retellings, please drop it below in the comment section. I always love recommendations, particularly for fairy tale retellings. Now, the next couple of books I want to talk about are retellings of the 12 Dancing Princesses. So to start out, we have the book that you guys already know that I finished recently, A Dance of Silver and Shadow. Now, I liked this book. The only thing that I didn't like was that it was a first-person POV. It kind of threw me off a little bit, but I did get more used to it as the book went on. But because I was thrown off and it took me a little bit longer to feel comfortable with the narrative, I only gave it a 3.75. However, it had a lot of really unique elements, and I really, really liked the plot. It was very different than what I expected a 12 Dancing Princesses retelling to be. Now, she does have a whole series, like I think they're interconnected standalones, so you don't necessarily have to have read the previous ones to understand the one that you're reading. This is actually a sequel series to her original series. The original series was called The Four Kingdoms. I think it started off with the Princess and the Pea retelling. Now, I actually bought that one on ebook after reading this, and I'm really looking forward to reading it soon because I liked the world that Melanie Sellier built in the book, and I want more of it. So I'll actually be reading the series, and if I really like it, who knows? It may appear in a future video. Now, The 12 Dancing Princesses is actually a favorite fairy tale of mine. I have seen so many retellings of it, and I really enjoy most of them. But the one that I enjoy the most is Entwined by Heather Dixon. This is one of my favorite books. This is a book that I have read and reread so many times. It's a comfort book for me. This is actually my second copy of this book because the first copy I read it so much that the pages literally became loose in their bindings and started to like fall out. And I also dog ear books, so the pages were all like bent and I destroyed it. I don't know how else to describe it. I destroyed it from overreading it. So when I say that I really love this book, I really love this book. I feel like not enough people have read it, and I want to tell everyone about it. Again, Entwined by Heather Dixon. She's actually written a couple other books since she released Entwined, one of which they're both young adult fantasy. One of which is called Illusionarium, which I haven't read, but it's a steampunk YA fantasy book. It's actually sitting on my shelf in there, and I want to read it. I just haven't found the time. And the other one is a more recent publication. I believe it was in 2018 it was published. It's called The Enchanted Sonata, and that one is actually a retelling of The Nutcracker. So suffice it to say, I'm a big fan of her. I don't know if she's still writing books, but if she is, I will be the first in the store to buy whatever she publishes next. The next retelling I want to highlight is actually a retelling of my favorite fairy tale, which is Beauty and the Beast. So that retelling is Cruel Beauty by Rosamund Hodge. This retelling is, again, I know I keep saying this, but it's so different than other retellings I have read. I don't know what it is, but it's darker than what one might expect retellings to be. It's young adult still, but it's just a good book. Now, it's been a while since I read this, but I have reread this several times, and each time I come away having noticed things in this book that I didn't notice before, which to me is a sign of a good book. Like when you go back and you pick up things like foreshadowing and whatnot that you didn't notice before, to me that's what is a sign of a great book and a great author, when she's able to lay these little seeds, you know? Now, she actually, I believe, is very invested in writing fairy tale retelling. And so she has another book out called Crimson Bound, which is a retelling of, perhaps you can tell from the cover, Red Riding Hood. I haven't read it. I plan to, but like the other books that I've mentioned that are sitting on my shelf, I just haven't found the time. Because I feel, especially with fantasy novels, you really have to have the time to dive into that world. It's not an easy, light read. Now, Beauty and the Beast retellings are a dime a dozen. Truly, even like the Hades and Persephone myth, you can view that as a spin on Beauty and the Beast retellings, or just another flavor of Beauty and the Beast retellings. The most popular one that comes to mind, of course, is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I feel like that's everywhere. Everyone has read it. I actually haven't read it, and I probably should, since it is a retelling of my favorite fairy tale, but I've heard very mixed things, so I haven't read it. But if you're someone who likes Beauty and the Beast retellings, you like fairy, fantasy, high fantasy, YA novels, give it a try. I probably will at some point. Okay, and now we're getting into one of my all-time favorite. Okay, and last but certainly not least, we're going to talk about Cameron Jacq. They're the author of a variety of fairy tale retellings. I own two of these books, which are actually three novellas just put together into book form. You can buy each of the novellas individually as ebooks, but I wasn't aware of that when I bought this. Now, this one is my favorite of hers. It contains three, again, novella-length fairy tale retellings, and they're actually altogether my favorite within their designated fairy tale. So this one contains Before Midnight, which is, as you might have guessed, a Cinderella retelling. Now, Cinderella retellings, I feel like, are again a dime a dozen. I really like Cinderella retellings. They're up there with 12 Dancing Princesses and Beauty and the Beast, with my favorite retelling category. In case you were wondering about any full-length Cinderella retellings, well, I can give you those. Cinder, which is the first book in the Lunar Chronicle series by Marissa Meyer. Now, Cinder isn't my favorite book in the series. That honor belongs to Cress, which is the, maybe you can tell from the cover, is the Rapunzel retelling. But this is not a series of interconnected standalones, so you definitely need to start with book one, and Cinder is a very good book. I really enjoyed it, and obviously got me into the series, without which I wouldn't have read Cress. Now, this is also a very different version of fairy tale retellings than I think I've ever read. I don't think I've ever read another fairy tale retelling like this. It is a sci-fi fantasy fairy tale retelling. Each book in the series, and I believe there are 4, tell a different fairy tale in this sci-fi world. Cinderella, in this case, is a cyborg, which is very fun. It's very fun. It's a good read. If you like sci-fi fantasy books and you like fairy tale retellings, give this a read. You'll like it. I promise. The second book, which is the Red Riding Hood retelling, is far and away my least favorite in the series. It's the one I always skip on rereads, but if you can power through that second one and get to Cress, you're gonna love it. I promise. Also, the ship in this novel of Cinder and Prince Kai is like, makes my heart like squeeze, you know. Back to Once by Cameron Jacq. So the second retelling that Once by Cameron Jacq contains is Golden, which is the retelling of Rapunzel, and the third one is Wild Orchid, which is a retelling of Mulan. Now, I don't have any other Mulan retelling that I can recommend because, unfortunately, I haven't read any other Mulan retellings, and I realized that as I was putting this together, and that's a major gap in my bookshelf. I've always really liked the story of Mulan. The Disney version of it, the retelling, I think it's a very fun, very cool, very empowering fairy tale or fable or whatever you want to call it. So if you guys have any recommendations for Mulan retellings, please let me know, because I would really love to expand that empty section in my bookshelf. Now, the other Cameron Jacq book I wanted to mention in this video is called Kissed. Again, just like Once, it is 3 novella-length fairy tale retelling. This one contains Beauty and the Beast retelling called Belle. I really liked it. It sticks true to the Grimm version of Beauty and the Beast. Sunlight and Shadow, which is not technically a fairy tale retelling. It's actually a retelling inspired by one of Mozart's operas. I believe it's called Sonata or Enchanted Sonata, something like that. It was very interesting. I really liked it, even though I had never heard of the opera before. And the third retelling that's contained in this is called The Winter's Child, and it is a retelling of The Snow Queen, which is the fairy tale that the movie Frozen was based on. Frozen changed it significantly, but hey, it's a retelling, so they have creative license to do what they want, right? So that's all the recommendations that I have for you guys right now. If you guys really have read any of these books that I have read and you really like them, please let me know, or if you hated them, please let me know. I'm always curious to hear other people's bookish opinions. If you guys have any recommendations for fairy tale retellings for me that I didn't mention in this video, please drop that down in the comments below. Again, I always want recommendations specifically in this subgenre because I don't think I've ever read a bad fairy tale retelling. Like I said, I've read a lot of them, and I like most of them. I didn't like them enough to keep rereading them like all the ones that I mentioned in this video. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any thoughts, please leave a comment section down below. Don't forget to hit that like button and click subscribe if you want to see more bookish content by me, Grace, and Gabby. But that's all for this week. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!